While she is safe, she will have enough time to find a way to return to Argan. Now she cannot lose a single chance, since she had the opportunity to get out of this captivity. Suddenly, Elizabeth said that she was no longer going to run away, since she has an obligation to him. A few days later, they decided to officially play the wedding, connecting their bonds by law, so that everyone knew about it. Elizabeth thought that if Andre saw this, he would have come in complete confusion from what was happening in front of him. She remembered how her brother told her that she would definitely find her the best man on this continent. This person will be kind, who will take care of her as a treasure that is more expensive in the world. She will have the most beautiful dress. They will receive a blessing in front of everyone, and they will have the best wedding. He organizes the celebration more luxurious and grandiose than that of the emperor, so that everyone around envies them. Therefore, she just must promise him that she will recover a little health before this great event. At that very moment, there was a voice of a priest who said that as a representative of God, he accepts marriage vows. And now, in confirmation of the oath, they must kiss. This statement made the girl startle. However, in this way, they will show that their oath to God is not lying, and they carry sincere motives. After that, a small pause came, during which the girl thought whether she should take her first step. Meanwhile, Reget looked to the side, noticing the emperor, who carefully watched them. He remembered how he asked him if they really needed to marry, because it was just necessary to give birth to a child. Neuer replied that it was better to make a child and marry Miss from a noble family, which will be worthy of his family. If he had not chosen to demonstrate his feelings for the princess, everything would now be completely different. But he should not think that everything is so bad, because you might think that he hid anger at the princess, but this is not so. It was after all that she seduced him to survive. He was used as a fool, so they are now in this situation. And now, looking at his bride, the man asked himself whether he was true, or was it his true feelings? When Elizabeth approached him, she whispered that they could just pretend that they kiss. At this time, the Archduke tried to understand whether this is a craving or instinct, and what he could get from this marriage. Suddenly, he stated that if they went for it, then it was necessary to do everything properly without pretending to be everyone. Maybe this will be similar to the release of sins for daring to capture the princess at his discretion. After that, the man kissed her, thinking that if so, then he agrees, and it makes no sense to hesitate. When they finished, Reget looked at his soldiers, who were shocked by the unusual behavior of the captain. Then he looked at Elizabeth, hearing how the priest said that they officially became husband and wife. Suddenly, a man with a stone face acquired a surprised girl by the shoulder and abruptly pulled her to him. The ceremony was completed on this, after which the guests began to diverge a little. I congratulate them on marriage. Some time later, Ivesta asked what kind of urgent business was there. Reget Duke decided to leave Noisiers after the wedding. Elizabeth smiled awkwardly, and answering that something seems to have happened in the estate, and the matter did not tolerate delay. However, the maid immediately translated the topic, said loudly that she looked so excellent in that dress, and her husband did not even really have time to look at her, such a block that could not appreciate the true beauty of the bride. Having lowered her head, Eliza said that perhaps she did not look so beautiful that he looked around. Ivesta was very shocked by these words, asking, did she not see how knights looked at her? And this is despite the fact that she is the wife of their master, and this is forbidden. But they still could not restrain themselves. The girl sadly lowered her head, saying that the Archduke did not even look at her really. That was a little sad. Suddenly, she remembered the moment of the kiss, feeling that this was a demonstration of his sincerity. Suddenly, she shuddered when the Erzduks went to the carriage window and called out, thereby frightening a little. Opening the door, he asked with an important view. She could not leave the carriage for a while to talk to him. Elizabeth was surprised by his sudden appearance, which was due to which she asked if something happened. In response to this, he touched her cheek, after which he stated that the sun is not so scorching, so you can take a walk. If she will be in a carriage all the time, it can have a bad effect on her health. She needs to go out into the air more. After that, he asked how she looked at the horse to go with him, and not choke in a carriage. When Elizabeth came out, she noticed that the knights openly staring at her, and she thought that everyone was uncomfortable. Suddenly, the Regite put a hood on her, said that it would be better, then no one would pay attention to her. Although the sun does not shine brightly today, it is better to play it safe to avoid any problems. The girl answered him that she sees nothing in front of her. She would be very problematic to move. The Archduke, with a calm look, replied that he himself would take her, so she should leave everything as it is. 5 minutes later, they were already riding a horse, slowly walking along the path, enjoying good weather. Reget said that being constantly in such a small room for a long time is harmful. She was in the carriage for 2 days, and if she wants to go out, you just need to say, because otherwise he will not know about it. Elizabeth replied that, not that she was silent about this, she was just really comfortable in the room. In Argonne, she spent most of her time in the bedroom, so she was more used to being indoors. The man asked how the princess could be locked up in the castle, but Eliza replied that she was not locked up. The thing was that if she was on the street for a long time, she easily picked up the disease and stood out. Nevertheless, sometimes she went out with her brother for a walk in the garden, but this was only under his sensitive leadership. Such days were special for her, so in the morning she felt very excited. Despite the fact that after that she was usually sick, these days did not cease to be beautiful for her. Suddenly, the girl shuddered. Ask in yourself why now she feels normally and quite healthy. After all, it was enclosed in prison for a month and a half, but does not feel any echoes. Paying attention to her wrist, the princess noticed that the bruises of the handcuffs were almost healed, which was strange. The Erzherzog noticed the same, saying that she still had bruises, although they had to disappear. Elizabeth was surprised, answering that for the first time she sees them to disappear so quickly, because before this was not the case. After all, only 10 days passed, so she did not understand how it was possible, because her body is always cycling in a different way. Suddenly, her eyes widened when she remembered Andre's words, that she would from now on will be healthy. Brother, with a smile on his face, asked to trust him, and she had no reason not to trust her own person. As Andre said, she really feels better, but it was not clear how this is generally possible. Suddenly, the Reget whispered something. The girl did not make out what exactly, but the man said that he did not say anything. Then he looked at her, then that she holds well, but as a person can be so fragile. She even has bruises after handcuffs last about 10 days, although another person would take a couple of days. He was curious whether she could withstand the pranks with such a body, and even more so, give birth to a child to him. Suddenly he flinched, thinking that he was visited by useless thoughts, which had never been before. Then he said that it would be nice. They stopped for a short while in a neighboring village to rest a little. Elizabeth suggested that he was tired, so she was not right to abandon this thought, because of which she agreed. At that very moment, Reuben, walking behind them, could not believe that the captain was tired. Deciding that he was heard, the girl decided to ask directly that after a 2-day ride on a horse and without rest, he was probably tired. Suddenly, she froze that she said that they could not go further, and they had to stop. Looking in the village, Elizabeth explained that here someone was waiting for them nearby, obviously arranging an ambush. Without wasting time, she pointed towards the trees, saying that for 12 hours, and aside 2 hours there is someone. At that very moment, an arrow flew next to the girl, which stuck into the ground, without causing her harm. The Reget put the horse on his hind legs, shouted that they were attacked, so everyone needed to prepare for the defense. Going down from the horse, the Archduke handed over to Eliza Reuben, asking to urgently get Her Highness to the center. He accepted the team, after which he asked her to follow him rather, so as not to fall under the attack of enemies. However, the girl did not hurry, instead of which she grabbed Reget by the raincoat and sincerely asked him to be careful. He drew attention to her trembling hands, but did not give in mind, asking Reuben to hurry to leave here. Elizabeth did not want to leave the person who literally just married, and therefore worried. Meanwhile, the soldiers tried to beat off arrows, urge each other to protect the center and Her Highness. Reuben, who covered the princess, also managed to beat off his arrows, cursing into the current situation. Suddenly, Elizabeth's gaze fell on one of the arrows, because of which she immediately found out to whom they belong and what are dangerous. The subordinate of the Erzherzog did not cry, screaming to the princess to hide in the carriage, and would never lean out. Meanwhile, Elizabeth loudly answered him that the arrow was with poison, so you need to be extremely careful. After all, if her memory does not fail, she saw such arrows when she ran away from Argonne, during an attack on him. Continuing to fight back, Reuben continued to swear that these barbarians had already reached their attempts to attack them. Grabbing the chest, Elizabeth was sure that their goal was she, but did not know what to do in this situation. She remembered that her brother told her that with the help of magic circles, you could cause protective and attacking spells. To use a magic circle, she just needs to put a hand on him and pronounce his name. The girl decided to do so, after which she mentally asked her brother to give her enough strength to protect. When she shouted his name, the carriage flashed with a bright light, reflecting the arrows directed in this direction. The Reget, which was far enough, turned around with surprise. Noticing a bright flash in the distance, he immediately recognized the protective magic, managing to notice how the arrows literally evaporated, touching the magic dome. At that very moment, Yanok came out to him, asking if he knew about everything, and that is why he intercepted this woman. Suddenly, a formidable smirk appeared on his face when he asked if Elizabeth Ase confessed to him. He was interested in whether she told him why Emperor Argan took care of his sister more than about himself. Reget replied that he did not understand what he was talking about. Then Yanok suggested that he really fell in love with her. Pointing to the Ursduk with a finger, he asked to stop these love games and give him the princess's head right now. If he does this, then no one will block his path, and all his warriors will remain alive and sound. Suddenly, the Reget grinned, with anger in his voice, asking what he was going to do with the head of this woman. Then he began to transform, saying that he would not make such a mistake in the place of His Highness. After all, now, by stupidity, he decided to attack with his human body on someone who is not even a man. He fearlessly attacked Rotiro knights, and although it is not known why they were a princess, but one was clearly. Grabbing Yanok by the throat of the dragon's hand, the man said that he never liked these disgusting eyes. After that, he sharply waved his hand, piercing the body of the prince of the corner, leaving him no chance of survival. When he stepped away, Yanok looked at the last out of breath, asking the Archduke to be careful with this girl. After all, this cunning forests will eventually drink everything that is possible from it, and will eventually disappear, like Emperor Argan. As soon as the last words came out of his mouth, somewhere in the distance, there was a girl's cry that attracted the attention of Reget. In the shower, his heart went into the heels when he heard someone shouted loudly about the princess's carriage. A few minutes ago, Ixa told Eliza, which it seems is already in order. It became much quieter than before. Looking at the expression on the face of the mistress, the maid suggested that she must be very scared. Elizabeth looked at her hand, feeling that the effect of magic had almost disappeared, then asked whether the Rajete was in order. They did not notice that a figure was confident in their direction, which had obviously unkind intentions. Feeling a shaking, Ixa clutched the princess and hugged her, asking worried about whether she was in order. Suddenly, the carriage staggered, as if someone began to move it from the opposite side, pushing them into a cliff. After a couple of minutes, the Heir de Zog ran to the place, asking what happened. Reuben replied that the carriage was breaking. It seems that as soon as the barrier was weakened, the hidden enemy ran up and pushed the carriage, and the princess pushed it to Jesus. As a result, she was left there alone. But in order to go down from the cliff to the lake, you need to go around the valley, so they are going now. The subordinate looked in surprise at his captain, who froze with a thoughtful expression on his face. Reget thought that it might be better if she died in such a heroic way, because she will either die during mating with a Prankoon, or her stomach will tear the child in the womb, or the truth will be revealed, and it will be on the gallows. None of this would be worthy of the princess. In any case, Elizabeth awaits the sad end, no matter what path she chose, trying to save her life. And if everything is so bad, then it is better for her to drown in the lake now than trying to do even worse. Meanwhile, Reuben asked His Highness to give an order, but the man only turned around without saying a word. Instead, he sharply ran towards the lake to personally save Elizabeth from death. At this time, the girl who fell into the lake began to drown quickly, not making attempts to swim up. She only asked herself, did God really have prepared such death to her? Because she imagined her differently. If she was destined to die so, it would be better if she died even then, so she at least could protect the honor of the princess. At that very moment, she remembered the words of her brother, who said that she had to die so that she could live on. With tears in her eyes, and she asked what he was saying, but he only asked to never give up. After all, She is capable of much more than he, so she must promise that she will never give up again. This memory worked, because of which Elizabeth sharply opened her eyes, realizing that she was still early to die. She firmly decided that she could not give up, so now she needed to breathe fresh air at all costs. The magic circle on her back sparkled, helping her to surge. In addition, she helped herself with her arms and legs. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed the Archduke, who dived behind her in full equipment. After a couple of minutes, they were already on the shore, while the man checked the condition of the unconscious Eliza. Understanding that the girl swallowed water, he decided to make her artificial respiration in her mouth to breathe. As soon as the Archduke finished, the princess cleared his throat and opened her eyes, and the man asked if she was in order. More clearly, the lakes of blue eyes, if you look back. Then during all this time, this man was worried about it every time. She understood this only after she saw this strong storm, whose witness was many times. After these thoughts, Elizabeth cried and tried to smile, saying that she was able to survive once again. Hearing these words, Reget hugged her, clinging to himself deep down, rejoicing that this girl did not die. As a child, the doctor said that it would not be strange. She would clean it even now, although he is very sorry to say that. But he does not know whether Her Highness of the Princess will be able to survive, as he is very bad. The girl slept tightly, but her body was pierced by heat and high temperature, during which she turned in a dream. As a child, she envied her brother for most of her time, because he did not suffer from frequent diseases. Some time later, she told Andre that it was very good that he is healthy, and she also wants to be like that. The guy with sincere interest asked if she did not like to get sick, because she was in bed all the time. The girl considered this question very offensive, so she pouted, answering that she really did not like it. Eliza asked to look at her hair, because they were terrible. Every time they get sick, the color of her hair dulls. When it becomes even older, it will completely lose its chestnut color, and she and her brother will be very different. Andre said that, on the contrary, he considers them beautiful, after which he took the curls of her hair in his hand, examining him. Andre always consoled her with his sincerity, and every time she complained, she was painful to look at him. A few years later, she told him that everything was in order, because she was far from a child and feels better. The girl said with a smile that she was no longer sick in a day. In the end, she had to swallow the words of envy. She just repeated over and over again that everything was fine, but her brother did not believe her, often letting out a tear because of her. However, from this she only became worse. She could not share about her physical suffering, and her spirit broke, and at some point she was on the border between life and death. As a result, Elizabeth cursed herself. One day, the doctor put a bottle of medicine in front of her. I will explain that she needs to take it a little. It helps for sleep, but this medicine can become a poison if you take too much for its weight. The girl carefully looked at the medicines, realizing that she could be saved, so harm her fragile health. As a result, she made a stupid decision to drink it almost to the bottom, which is why she almost said goodbye to life. Andre, who discovered her, sobbed, holding her, saying that all this happened solely because of him. He asked not to leave Eliza, and not to leave him, because he does not imagine his life without his own sister. The girl opened her eyes. I heard her brother said that she could not do anything for her and her health. She mentally asked him what the point is to hinder such an existence if he has been in bed all his life. When she got out, her brother said that he needed to draw a magic circle on her, but it would be a little painful. The girl began to ask what magic was talking about, because she would be uncomfortable to wear something unknown on herself. Touching her back, the guy replied that this is a magic that could forever eliminate the cause of her illness. From that day, Andre kept on a day-by-day on her body magic circles, attack, protection, and self-destruction. Each time he drew magic circles and explained why each of them was needed, but he said nothing about the first. She never found out what it was for the magic that Andre poured into her that day, and for what she was needed. And now the Reget brought Elizabeth in his arms to the room, while they were completely wet from the water. The girl asked if he would be here for several days, because he had some urgent affairs. The man replied that even the strongest knight would not be in order after he fell from the cliff to the lake. Eliza realized that we were talking about her, answering that she was in order, and she did not hurt anything thanks to magic. At that very moment, She remembered that in the lake her body somehow reacted, the feeling that she had used magic. At that very moment, Reuben's voice was heard from behind the door, who informed the master that the water for the bath was ready. The Archduke heard him, but the guy decided with an uncertain look to remind him of punishment for him. Reget, with a formidable look, said that from noon until the night no one should come here, including him. Hearing their dialogue, Elizabeth was surprised to ask why Rotiro knights must be punished. The man explained that they could not execute the order properly, and as a result, they could not protect the owner. They will answer for this in fairness, so she has nothing to worry about, because now she should take care of herself. Reget also explained that Avesta damaged her hand. The injury is not serious, but it is still inconvenient for her to use it. Therefore, he will help her so far. Hearing this, the girl was surprised that they would live together in the same room. With an indifferent look, the Archduke said that there was nothing strange in the fact that her husband and wife were divided one room. Eliza, with an uncertain look, asked how he could help her if she needed to take a bath right now. At that very moment, the man touched her cheeks, saying that she was all shifted, so he would do everything to help. To begin with, she needed to take off wet clothes, but Elizabeth, embarrassed, said that she could do everything herself. Taking her hand, he said that he sees that she even painfully move her fingers. It is not unlikely that she could do everything herself. Therefore, he politely asked her not to push him away, since he sincerely wants to help her and take care of his wife. He added that he would be unpleasant, and the girl thought that if she pushes him away, he would definitely not retreat. In any case, be that as it may, they will have to do the like more than once, since they decided to conceive a child. And since everything is in order, the Reget went up to her, after which he held out his hand, starting to slowly undress Elizabeth. Holding a towel in his hand and glancing at the girl, the commander-in-chief froze with the amazement and beauty of his wife. Then he covered it with a towel, but noticed that the man looks rather angry. Although now the Archduke was a caring husband, frank irritation was written on his face. A few minutes later, Elizabeth was in the bathroom, warming her body in warm water, looking at his hand. She thought that she was precisely pushed by some kind of power. The feeling is the same as when she killed the knight. The girl felt that something was happening with her body, and now she asked Andre what he did to her. At that very moment, the Regeta came to her, calmly said that if she needs to help, she could call him. When he was about to leave, the girl stopped him with interest, asking if he was angry with her because of something. With an awkward look, she explained that now his behavior and voice seemed more stringent than before. She earned this anger because all this happened because of her, but she needed to hear his thoughts about it. Indeed, due to the fact that the corner was aimed at it, others almost became victims, and his plans also changed. Elizabeth thought about the fact that she always causes him only troubles, asking himself what was wrong with her. At that very moment, surprise appeared on her face when she heard the answer of the Archduke that he was not angry. With an indifferent look, he asked if she forgot about their contract, because he never throws him out of his head. She takes care of the continuation of his family, and he is about her safety. But today, he could not fulfill his part. The foundation of the content of their contract is mutual assistance, so it is he who is to blame for everything, and it should be angry with it. He should not have left her on others, while he himself decided to go away to push the enemy. Of course, it was an absurd mistake that because of his impulse, he could not leave the battlefield when he was required. Not that a specific problem was hostile to the kingdom of the corner or Yanok Sikat. It's just that this greed in relation to the princess hurt him, and he did not want someone to offend her again. But then, when he saw a carriage falling from the cliff, I thought that perhaps it would be even for the better. But I was mistaken. After all, is it normal that he is so contrary to himself, and now it is very difficult for him to put his thoughts in order? Reget said that this happened because he forgot about something important, and henceforth would do everything possible. Leaving the bathtub, Elizabeth shook herself in a towel, after which she asked if he wanted to say that she was important to him. The man replied that of all the people who were ever under his defense, she was the most precious. There were no people like her, about whom he would care with such a desire and a sense of responsibility. But suddenly, he added that this was the case before that moment, and it would be another 6 months, while their contract is valid. The girl asked in this case not to brush her away from her, and he does not need to take the first step, fulfilling the conditions. However, he should not dismiss her when she takes the first step, otherwise the girl feels embarrassed. Eliza added that he knows that he is the only one for whom she can hold at the moment of her life. Having lost everything, the only thing it can cling to, this is an imprudent contract that they concluded. And if this man would turn away from her, she would have drowned at that bottom of the lake today and disappear forever. There are no more safe places for her, because any place where it will not be, it will be the bottom of the lake. She will never forget this shy, and now she will always remember him when the Reget will not be with her. Then Elizabeth asked him not to leave her on other people, as they could not protect her as he is. She asked to promise this so that in the future she was sure that at such moments he would be with her. Taking her hand, the man moved closer to her and, looking straight into his eyes, said that he promises her to this. That same night, Erzherzog sat on the edge of the bed and read a letter, sometimes looking out of the corner of his eye at the sleeping Elizabeth. Suddenly, the girl through a dream stated that she was cold. The man checked her temperature, and she was high. He thought that no matter how many times he warmed, the heat in some strange way leaves her again. Then he decided to lie down next to her and hug, because of which the girl woke up, feeling pleasant warmth. Suddenly, she shuddered, realizing that she was lying on a man, because of which she was immediately embarrassed, turning to him. Reget, with a calm look, said that it seemed to him that she was frozen. Elizabeth was surprised at his insight. Then the girl laid her head on his chest, feeling that she was very warm, but not quite comfortable. She decided to show him that this pose was a little embarrassing, but this Archduke asked her not to fuss. Suddenly, Eliza stared at him with a questioning look, feeling how something firm touches her. The man immediately asked not to pay attention to it, but the girl immediately blushed, saying that she could not. Reget suddenly hugged her, saying that she could think about it as a preparation for their future plans. After all, did it not want this? And she herself insisted on this. And now, for some reason, he hesitates. Eliza said that she was uncomfortable when she heard that if she further moves, she would only make it worse. Looking carefully at her, the man thought rationally that it was necessary to be careful, since she was so fragile. After all, by any awkward movement, it can inadvertently harm, so you need to be extremely careful. What then, what now, will be like a constant, as if he, like a crow, will crave what shines. A week later, the convoy went further on the road, while Elizabeth was in a carriage with Vesta. The maid, which quickly went recovering, with a smile asked Her Highness to look out the window, pointing her finger. The maid added that they are approaching, and they almost arrived in Rotiro, and the girl looked out in the window with surprise. She thought that in the north the land of the harsh mountains, and forests of Grenter, and fruitful plains along the Ten River in the south. In winter, there is also warmth here, as in the south, so the north is considered an equivalent to valuable territory for the empire. This is her refuge for the next 6 months, so she needs to get used to life as soon as possible. So they arrived in Rotiro, the blessed territory of Banella, where there was a real house of Reget. They were met by a huge number of servants, solemnly and sincerely congratulating His Highness on the return. The Archduke did not particularly react to this, only asking if nothing happened here in his absence. The main butler, Alfredo, replied that only the minor problems, which he notified of in letters. Family assistant. The college added that there was only a list of payments that have accumulated during this time. At that very moment, among all, the most loud voice was given by a woman who turned directly to the Archduke. The main maid Pettensen bowed and stated that she was glad that the master had returned intact and safety. It seemed to her that something had happened to him, because earlier she received news from Sir Reuben and was surprised. So, finally, the hostess will appear in Rotiro. The rest of the inhabitants were shocked that she went right away. At that very moment, she slowly left the carriage, extending her hand to Reuben, so that he helped her safely descend. Looking at her, the servants decided that it was true, and they could not believe that he had married and even said nothing to them. Although, judging by their workloads, they would still not be up to it, since the work accumulated incredibly. Mrs. Pettensen clarified that His Highness went against the Emperor, but still decided to marry. Therefore, she is very interested in knowing what this woman is about to become a mistress. At that very moment, Reget said that since they had finished with greetings, now you can walk a little on the castle. The man extended his hand to his wife, Thereby, I invite her to an excursion. But she was in no hurry to answer. Elizabeth refused, saying that he should go and go about his business. These words were very surprised by the man. She added that, because of her, his plans had changed, and it seems that he had accumulated a lot of unfinished things. With a stone expression on his face, Reget replied that the castle had a very complex structure, and it would be easy to get lost in it. Elizabeth awkwardly replied that in this case she could ask Sir Reuben, and she still has Ives. The Archduke explained that Reuben could not even protect her. When he heard these words, the knight next to him immediately drooped. Eliza clarified that this is his castle, so it should not be dangerous here, especially when a faithful knight is nearby. Reget replied that even if it is safe, other people still know anything about her and may be indifferent. Elizabeth confidently stated that now they will know. Besides, he could not always be accompanied. She does not want him to be distracted because of such a trifle. The man was surprised that she called the same trifle. Listening to them, the servants thought that His Highness was already stubborn in itself, but it seems that the new mistress is also not easy. Elizabeth said that there are things that she can do. She is uncomfortable that she causes inconvenience. The man protested, answering that this was not inconvenience. This is his duty to both the knight and her legal husband. However, Eliza stood on her, saying that if she had problems, she would turn to the butler or maid. Alfredo reacted instantly, offering Her Highness to escort her in order to familiarize him with the castle. The girl asked if he was not against showing her the main tower, and then the room. He happily agreed. The butler politely added that he would also introduce her to the maids who will be assigned to her in the future. The collapse turned to Reg, saying that he was also tired of the road, so he could relax and eat in his office. The guy explained that Erzherzogini with Alfredo and Mrs. Pettinson, so he definitely has nothing to worry about. Suddenly, the Archduke interrupted him, asking him to call her princess. The collapse was surprised at such an unusual request. The Reget, in turn, explained that it would not have a time for the status of Erzherzogini for long, so formalities are useless. After 5 minutes, the butler explained to the girl that the stairs are very steep, so you need to be very careful. This area was often invaded by neighboring states, so the bedrooms are located on the top of the tower. The man advised her not to climb this staircase alone, as she is too steep and dangerous. He then added that His Highness spends most of his time in his office, which he will show later. Elizabeth thought that this area, of course, justifies its beautiful name, Blessed Earth. This is an ideal refuge, where there is no scaffold and severity of the north. But you cannot lose your head from a beautiful picture. As a child, she lived in an illusion and thought that this world was endlessly beautiful. But then this appearance collapsed with Argan. Suddenly, she thought about whether this place really is refuge, or she will have to be much more difficult than before. Perhaps this is another battlefield, but she was not yet sure, because she had not yet had time to step on this land. Noticing the Erzherzog approaching her, Elizabeth asked with surprise and trepidation whether he had already freed himself. The man explained that he was returning because he was worried, although he went only 1 hour, after which he raised her in his arms. He asked this time not to push him away, although, as she said, he has a lot of things today, but it is more important. After all, if her condition worsens, it will be difficult for him to concentrate due to experience, so he is here now. Gently clinging to his shoulder, Elizabeth replied that this time she did not even plan to push him away. Then she added that it has passed for an hour. It must have been difficult for him to climb this staircase every time. Suddenly smiled, answering that he had never climbed the stairs for more than an hour. It surprised Eliza. The man added that he would not hurt to try, after which he looked into her eyes, hinting at the romantic situation. But when she was in her room, Ivesta said that this duke immediately went to his office. The servants told her that she had a very busy day today, during which she met the castle. After that, the maid asked if the lady was tired, and she could ask to prepare her water in the bath to prepare her. Not having time to answer, they heard Mrs. Pettinson's voice outside the door. Eliza said that she would come in. As soon as the door opened, Elizabeth's face froze in bewilderment when she saw not only the main maid. The woman said that she brought the maids who would serve her. She did not forget to carefully prepare them. The girl replied that she did not need so many servants. She was enough with her head with another assistant. Mrs. Pettinson said that there would be few 2 people, after which she decided to clarify, is she not pregnant? Therefore, she would provide him with a person from Rotiro. This old man could not calm down when he heard the news about her, since she must understand that His Highness is a difficult person, and she is tired, having made a long way. That is why she brought with him the doctor of the Rotiro castle. The man immediately bowed, but did not make a sound. The maid explained that the doctor who was traveling with her needs time to relax, and she needs to go through an examination. Elizabeth thought worriedly that if the healer of the Rotiro castle examines her, then this would not end in anything good. He may guess that she is not pregnant, then a contract with the Archduke, and her life can be at risk. Due to his alertness, it is unlikely that he still told someone this secret, which means that there was something else. The girl was practically sure that this is a Miss Pettinson conference, who decided to verify everything in everything. Elizabeth decided to go to the trick, saying that he was now wanting to make out her things with the e-vest, and she was not up to the inspection. She will transfer him until her doctor is ready, because this is not such a strong need to check her. The woman explained that this would not take much time, so you need to take their care of the new mistress of the castle. Eliza thought that this was not her homeland, where she lived all her life. Here, no one would want to gain her location. She had no choice but to agree, so she proposed to start examining as soon as possible. After a couple of minutes, the doctor began to study her body, first measuring the pulse and the general external indicators of the body. The man said that the pulse is so weak that it is so difficult to determine the state of her body. It seems that, for the exact conclusion, you need to take a blood test, so the older maid said that you need to take it. Suddenly, Isa was adjusted into the conversation, saying Mrs. Pettinson that this was already too much, which was very surprised by Elizabeth. The maid asked if she wanted to stick a needle into a person who still hadn't rested after a long journey. And what is the need to do this now? Even if they take blood, the results still do not immediately seem. She asked the doctor to move away, because nothing would happen if he postpones an inspection for several hours, and will come later. Eliza added that she was not surprised that the doctor could not make a conclusion, because this is not the strength of ordinary healers. In addition, the owner chose her doctor, so she does not see the point in one more, which was sent by the servant. Therefore, she said that there is no point in such a hurry to check her pulse now, because she knows her body better. Then the girl added that this is how they serve their master in Rotiro, hinting at the disobedience of servants. Pettinson apologized for rudeness, and Elizabeth said that she would not mind if she leaves her one maid. She does not like when there are more than 3 people near her. An extra amount can bring her inconvenience. However, she hopes that the request to have fewer people does not spoil the name of Rotiro, because it concerns her comfort. Therefore, she would like that she would not have to repeat the same thing again and again, returning to this topic. Pettinson bowed, answering that she understood everything perfectly, so they will do everything as she said. Toward evening, Ixa said that these people are really not ready to serve her, and Erzsuzga should be told about this. However, Elizabeth thought that all these people are her close circle now, but none of them are on her side. In addition, Mrs. Pettinson looks quite experienced, which means that there will probably be the most problems with her. Who knows, perhaps, she wants to convey news about her pregnancy with a letter to the emperor, but this cannot be allowed. For her safety, she needs to somehow lure her to her side, when suddenly her gaze moved to Evist. The girl began from afar, asking if she remembered that when the carriage fell from the cliff, she saved her, pushing her away. The maid replied that she could not forget such kindness, because if not for the mistress, she would not have gotten away only with her hand. Then Elizabeth uncertainly asked how to change her owner to pay for a saved life, although she is her maid, but still the man of the Archduke. But she wanted to see her closer next to her. She does not intend to betray the Archduke, just asks to help her stay safe in this castle. Elizabeth concluded that she would not be able to deceive the maid, which is near her constantly, and Ivesta is the only one of all who she has at the moment, and she is one who can definitely be trusted. After that, the girl told the maid that initially there was no child, and this whole story was a continuous lie. Hearing this, the eyes of the maid expanded, because she could not believe what she had just heard from the mistress. At that very moment, the door opened, and the girl added that it seems that a person who would prove this fact has arrived. After a while, the doctor applied the Archduke that if you provide her healthy diet and good sleep, there will be no problems. There are no consequences after the experienced. Therefore, it seems, there is nothing to worry about. And there is also no threat to life. The man asked if she handed her his words. The elderly woman answered in the affirmative, dutifully bowing her head. She told her everything that she knew, along with his words. Reget asked what her reaction was ultimately. A few hours ago, Ivesta was shocked when he heard that the fetus inside the body could really harm him. After all, when the fruit of the semi-prankoon grows enough and will take a human form, it will begin to significantly rage. His Highness is a special case. Most dragons relate to monsters. The same applies to semi-pranks. As you know, the body is not able to survive the birth of a monster, even if the child holds out in the womb for 10 months. The body of the mother, in which he sucked all nutrients, will not be able to cope with the process of birth itself. As a result, the child himself leaves the womb and is born, without waiting for the birth of a natural way. Elizabeth, listening to all this, was noticeably sad, after which the image of the Erzstug and his words broke out in her head. Once he said with a strange smile that she herself said that he wanted to die a terrible death, giving birth to him. Then Eliza asked what she needed to pay attention to when she wages an intimate connection with the semi-precon. The woman was surprised at this issue, after which she replied that there are some points that should be avoided. There is one day when the rage of the dragon of the Semicites in relation to people comes out, and this is especially noticeable. At this time, they either kill people or go to some crimes. The Archduke leaves for hikes at such a time. The riot does not subside until he sees human blood or satisfy his intimate desires. Dragon people are very vulnerable to their needs, and they are also very persistent during intimacy. Ivesta said that this should not be allowed, because it is possible to agree to a connection which carries death. Then she asked Her Highness to think about her choice again, because otherwise she could not survive this. Elizabeth raised her head, and with a confident look asked that this was not impossible, and she was obliged to try. Looking at the dumbfounded faces of the maid and the doctor, the girl explained what had in mind exclusively the structure of the body. Hearing a full report, the Reget grinned and crossed his arms over his chest, saying that she was very fearless, or she hopes for the best. At the same second, his thoughts was interrupted by the doctor, said that this could sound like a chatter. Although its recovery goes well, this does not mean that she is as well as ordinary women. Therefore, when he divides the bed with her, the woman politely asked the Archduke to be very careful, and, if possible, you need to be a little more affectionate, because Her Highness is unfamiliar with natural pleasures. The man decided to clarify that he should not rudely hug her, embarrassed. The woman confirmed his words. Reget said that if he did not know that there would not be so much headache, because earlier he had already hugged her. Letting go of the doctor, the man thought that it seemed to be better for some time to stay from the princess. At that very moment, Mrs. Pettinson entered the office, asking that he could not devote a little time to the old woman. After a couple of minutes, he said that he ordered her to communicate with the princess just like him, but she brought her a doctor. Suppose, the woman replied that she did not think, and therefore generously asks for forgiveness. With an indifferent expression on his face, Reget said that she seems to be really ashamed, so he forgives her. At that very moment, Pettinson asked if she could tell him something like his nanny, and not the main maid. The man froze, asked to say. The woman said that he wanted him to marry the one whom she loves. She still remembers a 9-year-old boy who first entered the territory of the imperial castle. He had such an empty look, but he looked with a desire at those who had a high rank, especially the emperor. But besides this, there was something else that she noticed. But before the village of Moment, she did not share these thoughts with anyone. Pettinson said that exactly when he saw the emperor, he is now looking at Her Highness to the princess. Therefore, now she politely asked him to tell honestly whether he was actually not a mistress into the house, and she does not need to obey and worship, because she is exactly the one whom he really considers to be a companion of life. The man bowed his head inquiringly, asking if there were 2 options at once, because this is more logical. Pettinson replied that the princess was supposed to be hanged in the capital, but escaped it due to pregnancy. He can deceive His Majesty, but he will not be able to deceive this old woman who has been with him throughout his life. Then she decided to ask directly what the real reason why he brought Her Highness to Rotiro. At first, the woman suggested that it was only because of envy, speed, or pity, clearly something from this. However, Reget replied that everything was simply because he wanted to do this. Then he asked if her answer was satisfied. Having got up, he added that he understands that she is his nanny, but she allows herself too much now. Pattinson thought that he feels in the treatment of people who seem precisely created in the likeness of the gods. But she knows that he does this not out of sympathy or admiration. The whole thing was much deeper. This is the result of the fact that he has learned to hate himself since childhood, because of which now he is very difficult. The woman turned to the Archduke, who took a place at the table, asking him to sleep in his bedroom. She clarified that Her Highness was waiting for him. After that, she left the office, leaving the man alone. Meanwhile, Elizabeth was in her room and turned in a dream, simultaneously making slurred sounds. When she opened her eyes, she saw Andrei, whose head was bandaged, closing one of his eyes. Without responding to her comments, the guy also began to ask, in Liana, and what is happening to her now? Then he made her startle, sharply and loudly, asking how she could do so recklessly and stupid. Then he shouted that she was Princess Argan, as she could agree to get pregnant from the Archduke of Kristan. Having cried, Elizabeth replied that she had no choice, and she did it because she needed to survive. Interrupting her excuse, her brother grabbed her by the shoulders, asking to start leaving Retiro as far as possible. Then he said that he needed to leave, after which his silhouette began to slowly dissolve in front of the girl. The next second, Elizabeth opened her eyes, stretching out her hands in front of her, shouting the name of her brother into the trail. Then Eliza thought out loud that while she was traveling to Retiro, he never dreamed of her when he suddenly appeared. Her gaze moved to the pillow next to her, because of which the girl concluded that yesterday the Reget did not come either. A week passed. How she arrived in Retiro. If you add a trip, then they have concluded a contract for a month now. She remembered how the man gave her a promise, but she thought that this was a promise that would not be fulfilled. When she went out into the corridor, Ivesta screamed after her. That was still cold in the morning, so she asked to dress properly. At that very moment, they stopped, noticing Mrs. Pattinson in front of them, who asked if she was well sleeping. Looking at her replaced behavior, the girl calmly replied that thanks to her care, she slept well. The woman asked the maid to bring a shawl for Her Highness, and as soon as possible, she immediately agreed. The maid bowed, asking the princess to wait a bit, thereby surprising the new mistress of Retiro. At the same time, Elizabeth thought that it seems that there are a lot of beautiful women in the castle, even though they are ordinary maids. From her thoughts, the calm voice of the main maid was distracted, who asked if she needed something else. Eliza decided to ask directly whether Mrs. E chose all those who are now working in this castle. The woman replied that until that time, they took the servants with the butler, and they can prepare her a list. Then she added that if they did not choose someone, then the Archduke directly sent these people. Elizabeth asked if he chose the servants, to which the maid replied that he sent candidates to the title of Erzherzogini. Such a statement dumbfounded the girl, and her heart began wildly pounding, because she did not expect something like that. After a couple of minutes, she alone went down the stairs, thinking about what she had just heard from Pattinson. Based on the wall, she thought that he personally sent not servants, but candidates for the title of Erzherzogini, because His Majesty gives great attention to the marriage of Archduke and does everything possible for this. These women are sent by a personal imperial family, so they cannot refuse them, and they were hired as servants. Elizabeth heard that the semi-pranks are located to licentiousness, which led her to a terrible thought. Perhaps one of these women was close to him, and for some time, close contact was maintained with him. At the same time, the surprised Reget asked if she herself went to the office, not finding her wife here. Ivesta replied that she wanted to go alone. She was so adamant that they could not do anything. Hearing an apology, the man sighed heavily, asking if something Her Highness is still bothering. The maid replied that it seems that she had problems with sleeping. It seems that she constantly dreams of some nightmares. The Archduke thought about the fact that it was strange, because while they were traveling to Retiro, nothing of the kind happened to her. However, this was not all, and the maid added that it seems that Her Highness was restless to sleep alone. Indeed, on the road, he was always next to her. Perhaps this somehow influenced her further life with the Archduke. Only a week has passed since they arrived in Retiro, so she will need time to get used to it. In addition, Issue asked, unless she needs the warmth of her husband, who is absent every night. Reget asked if she said so, but the maid replied that if she was next to her, this can be understood. Therefore, she invited him to go to Her Highness in the office in order to spend a little time alone. After all, she went to look for him there, but it seems that they were smashing, and now they are time to meet. The man replied that she understood everything. The girl indicated the path and stated that he should head towards this door. When asked what door we were talking about, Ivesta replied that she was talking about the door leading from the bedroom straight to his office. Suddenly, Reget's face was depressed when he asked if the princess went down the ladder alone. At that very moment, Ixa froze with a stupid smile, realizing that she had let go of the mistress alone to a dangerous staircase. Meanwhile, Elizabeth thanked Reuben, because if not for his help, she would have stuck on that stairs. Rubbing his head, the guy replied that they must have been locked up to the office because they were not used for a long time. But he did not think that she would so hide at the door. But the girl replied that she had just tapped a little. Reuben explained that this is a very dangerous staircase, so it is better not to walk here alone, otherwise it will be bad. After all, the Archduke will worry. But Eliza replied that it was uncertain, that he would worry since he was cold. The guy was dumbfounded by such a statement. I will explain that he is actually very gentle and kind to her. She simply did not see how he treats the knights, so fierce that he has a chill through his back. If you are not so touched, you can immediately say goodbye to this world, since the captain does not forgive anything to anyone. And with her, he is like a ripe peach, so soft. So in this regard, she has absolutely nothing to worry about. Suddenly, the girl was distracted, felt the horse touched her shoulder, and she immediately decided to stroke her. Reuben shuddered, stating with concern that she was very dangerous to touch this horse, because she was a fighting one. But the next second, surprise froze on his face when he saw that absolutely nothing was happening. Elizabeth said that despite its large size, he is very affectionate and gently refers to strangers. Why did she decide to ask the name of this child? To which the knight replied that the gentleman still had not given him a name. Continuing to stroke the horse, the girl carefully asked the horse that his master was so heartless. Reuben said in surprise that the horse was so hard and uncontrollable that only the Archduke tamed him. Then Eliza asked the horse when his owner would appear, because it is very unfortunate that her searches did not lead to anything. The guy friendly said that if boring, they could take a walk along the castle to pass the time a little. The girl asked if she could lend a horse to ride around the yard, but there she could choose any horse. With a smile on her face, the girl turned to the Chernish, asking if he would ride her, in response to which she received his snort. At that very moment, the man behind her stated that this is not possible, and can a pregnant woman ride a horse? Suddenly, the Rajel came up and hugged her from behind, adding that it is very dangerous to be close to the combat horse. Putting away and looking away, Elizabeth replied that this world is full of dangerous things, and sometimes it is worth risking. Having removed the cloak from himself, the man covered her wife with her, saying that he was like this for her, so she should be more careful. Looking carefully at her face, he asked if she was so easily dressed all this time, after which she began to wait for the answer. She replied that she had not met almost anyone from the castle, and on the way, other knights saw her in simpler clothes. Reget asked her to walk in such clothes only in front of him. Others should not see her in a similar form. This is allowed only to the maids that look after her in the bedroom, and there are no other exceptions. Eliza said that it does not matter, because he too does not see her often in such clothes. With sadness on her face, she added that he was so busy that even in a day she could not visit her at least once. However, the Archduke decided to return to the previous topic, asking if she would continue to walk in this light clothes. Elizabeth answered displeasedly that if not to tell anyone that this is a nightie, no one would even think about it. Then the man touched her lips, asking not to bite them, because she probably hurts, and he would not want to see it. Eliza asked that he was such a strict person to come here and call her reckless, because she was already ashamed. Suddenly, he grabbed her in his arms, strictly ordering Reuben to go to him separately in the office for conversation. The girl was worried about why he was doing this, because Sir Reuben simply escorted her, as befits a knight. Noticing how he turned his head, the girl thought that every time he was just silent when he did not want to answer. Looking after them, The soldier thought that they really looked like a married couple, and it was a wonderful picture. When they returned to the room, Eliza said that she did not understand why he was angry with her, demanding an explanation. After all, if he does not want her to leave the hospital, well, about him to come more often. We must not forget why it is here, and they need to get down to business. But he did not want to do this now. Elizabeth was unhappy, looked at him, thought that, of course, he did not want, because he still has many other options. Then she got out of bed, saying that in this case there is no point in just sitting and dutifully wait for him. Reget shuddered when he heard that she was going to ask Sir Reuben to show her the castle. After that, with a severe look, she asked him to move away so that he would let her go, because she had business. The man thought that she wanted to say that they had no reason to be together if they are not trying to have a child. After that, a small pause came, during which they silently looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Putting his hand on her shoulder, the Archduke said that he perfectly understands what she wants from him at this second. He does not like most in his life when the merger of bodies occurs with someone whom he does not even know. Like animals that succumbed only to instincts, albeit with his essence, he was born just that. A monster who was previously temporarily born, getting rid of his mother in an incredibly cruel way. Such as he, blinded by lust, and they do not care about those who are under them. Because of this, semi-pranks are worse than animals. His nature is not very far away from them, so he tries to stay away from her so as not to tempt. He thought that he could cool if he would see her face less often, but everything was not so at all, and nothing changed. The girl watched in surprise how the man touches her cheek, while he thought that she wished her. Just like 3 years ago, when he first met her, he still feels the same emotions. He still wants this painfully beautiful woman to belong only to him, and no one else. This sparkling thing that fell into his hands, albeit for a short while, but should stay with him as long as possible. After all, she must remain intact, without any damage, and he is obliged to fully store its integrity. At that very moment, he remembered the words of Mrs. Pettinson, who said that it was because of envy, self-interest, or pity. An ambiguous smile appeared on the Reget's face when he concluded that she was right, and he feels all this. After that, the Archduke said that he wanted to say that they can do this when they recognize each other better. Elizabeth looked at him in surprise, asking if he wanted to become closer, because before that he did not show this. When asked how much time it will take, the man replied that it depends on how much she would meet. The girl turned her head in displeasure, saying that it was he should make efforts, because he did not show her. And when she went to look for him, she immediately got angry, because of which Sir Reuben was unreasonably scolded. Suddenly, Reget held out his hand, saying that the festival is now being held in the square, behind the territory of the castle. Crouching on one knee and taking her hand, the man asked if she wanted to go there tomorrow. That night, Reget thought that they even signed a contract, so he could not avoid this forever. You just need not to do everything gradually, so as not to do it worse than yourself or to her. Only then everything will work out. At that very moment, he shuddered, looking questioningly at the girl who, through his dream, began to mumble the name of his brother. Andre asked her to leave there, because she knows that Rotiro is not a place for her, and she has a home. She could not clearly see his face, but she heard a scream who called to leave away from the castle. The Hertzduke was surprised to watch the girl's body began to sparkle with magic, and she began to leave her body. Taking the curls of her hair in his hands, he, not understanding anything, began to ask what it is, because he saw this for the first time. The next day, they went to the festival. Elizabeth said that she was glad that it was not so hot in the north in the summer. Bending a little, Reget decided to ask what exactly was so pleasing to her, supporting the conversation. The girl, surprised by such a question, replied that even in such close clothes, she was not hot now. She looked at a man who said that if it became difficult for her, she should definitely tell him about it. Eliza replied that she was hard, but she never went on such a long walk, so she likes everything. Reget asked if she had never reached long walks, which looked very strange for the princess. The princess, slightly embarrassed, replied that as soon as her walk was linger, Andre immediately resorted to. He always carefully picked her up in his arms, worried that she was very dangerous to walk on the ground. She remembered how she was upset due to the fact that he did not always raise her in his arms, but it was a very long time ago. After that, with a sincere smile, She asked what she was there, turning to him officially. Reget gently grabbed her by the hood, naming her name, while the girl did not understand why he did it. The man asked to call him by name, because the title is too remarkable, and someone can find them here. Eliza nodded, thought that first of all she needed to hide her name, if I needed to go unnoticed. Then she decided to ask who gave him this name. The Archduke replied that the Emperor called him so. The girl asked what his name was before meeting him, because she heard that he entered the palace at the age of 9 years. Reget replied that even now he rarely calls by name, and before that, he had a life where the name was not needed. At that very moment, she called him, and with a smile on her face, also asked to call her by name so that everything was honest. She explained that too, after the death of her parents, only her brother called by name, and the rest practically did not see. The man asked how the Emperor Argan called her. She replied that usually he called her Lizzie alone. After all, she could not leave the castle, so her brother often came to her room. This was surprised by the Archduke. He suggested that she was not specifically released, but all this time he was bothered by another detail. The energy that came out of a small body is not the power of the princess, but some kind of alien magical power. And it seems that only one person could dare to apply magical signs on this body. It was obvious. Reget turned to her officially, but the girl with a displeased look reminded that he should call her by name. He corrected himself, after which he asked how she feels now, in comparison with the time when she lived in Argan. At first she was surprised at this issue, after which she replied that, surprisingly, she was better than before. Now she is gone to the thought, is it not from the fact that her body is now trying to survive in this way after the death of her brother? And if so, then they have something in common again. But the Archduke did not answer anything only by thinking. So, the health of the princess began to recover after the death of the emperor, which was a very strange phenomenon. There is clearly something here, between the Emperor of Argan and the princess. After all, they are twins, and their connection is very strong. Suddenly, he thought that the angle persistently aimed at the princess's neck, as if he wanted to show something, as well as the words of Yanok, that it is a tricky forest at the end, will drink everything that is possible from him, and in the end will disappear. Then the Reget with a shock suggested that Emperor Argan is still alive, and his death is a huge lie for everyone. A few days later, the maid said that the gentleman and the lady became closer since they arrived from the festival. The news of pregnancy, Her Highness, caused a suspicious awkwardness, but now they have breakfast together. They also often spend time in the office of the Archduke. It was surprising how closer they became to each other. But they are a married couple, and it was quite natural. It would be strange if they lived separately. At the same time, Elizabeth, drinking tea, decided to ask the Archduke whether they became at least a little closer with him. Earlier, Mrs. Pettinson said that she should already have a stomach, but it is not visible because it is thin, but still it will be necessary to contact, because it will be better if she sews dresses in advance. Then they will save time. The girl thought that if this man simply hugged her, she would not be so worried about such a little thing. Get in the head, she asked herself to be true for her to pounce on him, like some kind of animal. While Eliza was thinking about this, he did not notice how the Rajate approached her and called out to her, because of which she shuddered. He asked if she had a nightmare again at night, because he heard that she couldn't even have breakfast normally. Looking that there was no face on her, the man suggested that she again dreamed of the emperor, and this is not the first time. That day, it seems, she began to sleep better after that magic came out of her, but the dream is still not calm. Outwardly, he sees nothing like that on her body, but some circles or signs can be hidden deeper on the body. The man asked himself if he would have to undress her to find something, after which he fixed his gaze on the neckline. Suddenly, Eliza asked, this is all due to the fact that she insisted on walking on the castle on her own, or that in the end Sir Reuben showed her him. Perhaps this is because there are so many beautiful women here. Reget did not understand what was going on, but he answered that he did not know how everywhere, but such a person is sitting in front of him now. The princess was embarrassed, saying that she should not be cunning every time, because of this she could not say anything. After all, he must understand that for her this is a matter of life and death, but still pretends to be trifles. She remembered his reaction to her body. Ask for himself. Does he not want her? Because his body spoke about it. He said that he did not want to hug the way she, but then behaved very strangely and did not explain it. Now he pretends that he does not want anything, and every time she encourages her, so she asked to say honestly whether he wants to do this with her. Elizabeth decided to find out everything directly, not trying to get from the rear. Without waiting for an answer, the princess rushed forward and hugged him, saying that this was a clear violation of the contract. Reget asked in which place, to which he received the answer that they had agreed to cooperate with each other. They had an agreement that if there were suitable conditions, then they would do this. But nothing happened. To convince her, he will have to come up with a more good reason than phrases that they need to become closer. The girl lowered her head, adding that, not that she does not agree with his opinion, but soon everyone will be clear to everyone. Elizabeth allegedly accidentally touched his groin, thinking that even now he reacts to her as necessary. Having acquired it, she was thinking right now to drag him into bed and not to let him escape somewhere. Then she pulled away, said that she wanted to be polite, but he stubbornly continues to not hear her. She also does not want to do this with someone who does not like it, although someone can do this to achieve something. But she has her to taste, so now she has nothing against sharing the bed with him. When she finished, she immediately turned her head off, as she became embarrassed and ashamed. But the girl was waiting for the answer. Having heard nothing, she stated that she would go because she would come soon. But the man stopped her and pressed her to the table. Then he said that in fact, he could not even think about this, after which he felt Eliza tremble. Touching her hair, he added that if she really thinks so, then they can try something. The girl began to stutter when she felt the Duke's hands began to slowly unfasten her dress.